In this story, the Earth suddenly entered the era of spiritual revival. People focused on researching spiritual energy, and some were able to awaken superhuman abilities that they used to protect others from monsters as heroes. Somewhere else, our MC, Shinji, is stabbed in the stomach, and he demands to know what's happening from a lady named Rin. She gets tired of his blabbing and sticks the knife deeper so he can die. Suddenly, some other guy named Yuto asks the lady if the game is over, and she excitedly tells him she's been waiting for him. Yuto tells Shinji that he killed his comrades too, and asks him if he has any last words. Shinji calls him scum and swears never to forgive him, but Yuto doesn't give a crap. Yuto kicks him off a ledge to where some monsters can devour him, and Shinji blames himself for getting his party members killed. He promises to never forgive Rin and Yuto if he gets reincarnated, and he promises to bury them both while he becomes monster food. Suddenly, a system called the Supreme Martial Arts System is activated because this guy is in danger and time reverses. Because he doesn't have sufficient points, the system says the rewind point will be selected at random. In a few seconds, Shinji is shocked to find himself watching a football match, and he wonders how he's not dead. Out of nowhere, a screen pops up to inform him that his data has been loaded and he can select the attribute he wishes to have. He wonders if he came back to life, and when he realizes that's the case, he promises not to let those guys do as they want. From his calculation, Shinji realizes he's been sent back a month before the spiritual energy explosion. At this point, no one in the world has noticed the fact that the spiritual energy has begun recovering. After it recovers, humans and plants will undergo mutation. Anyone who eats supreme-grade energy fruit can gain superhuman power. This occurrence even affects the weather and causes several changes in the sky. Shinji hopes to be able to grow his strength by harnessing power from the charged environment. He smugly decides that 1 month is enough time to become stronger. He decides to check out the system, and the system informs him that it has 4 main features, which include attribute development, point exchange, attribute skill addition, and daily missions. Shinji decides to choose the fire attribute since it has the high attack power, and the system informs him that he's gained the purple fire attribute skill called Heavenly Fiery Crystal. Because of the purple skill, he's also given 5 points. Shinji is shocked because of how rare the purple crystal is since it's the highest tier skill. Once he grabs the crystal, he is overwhelmed with the power of fire, and he promises himself to be stronger than anyone else. Suddenly, he gets a call from Tamura Rin, who tells him that she needs 200k yen from him to add to the cost of a bag she wants to get. Annoyed, Shinji asks her if she's stupid and tells her to go ask Yuto and to never call him again. In the car, Rin is surprised by his reaction, and she demands to know how he can dare talk to her like that. Yuto wonders what's going on, but Rin says that Yuto is the only person she cares about, and she doesn't care about him. Later, Shinji heads out under the scorching sun, and he wishes he had reincarnated a few days ago so he could find the hospital where the person he's looking for is. He's checked 3 hospitals. In a flashback, he remembers talking to this person who's named Mika, and he remembers how she told him that her father made her eat suspicious health food that caused her internal ice spiritual energy core to shatter. In the present, Shinji promises to protect Mika and her spiritual energy. Somewhere else, the doctors wonder what's wrong with Mika because her vitals are normal, but her body temperature won't rise. Her father begs a doctor named Lee to save her, so Lee checks her pulse and asks Mr. Matsumoto if his daughter has traveled recently. Matsumoto replies that she went to Iceland the month before to celebrate her university acceptance, and this happened a week after she returned. The doctor says her body has accumulated too much yin energy, and they must use yang to dispel it. He prescribes a medicine for her, and he advises that she takes it well so she doesn't get worse. As the doctor leaves, Shinji rushes into the room, and they all wonder who on earth he is. When they realize he doesn't work in the hospital, they try to take him out because no unauthorized personnel are allowed into this section. However, Shinji tells Mr. Matsumoto that his daughter isn't sick but has awakened an extremely rare ice-type spiritual energy. He warns that her body will break down and her future will be ruined if he interferes, but the doctors force him out because they're sure he's been watching too much manga recap. Suddenly, Dr. Lee stops them and asks Shinji how he knows about ice-type spiritual energy and who he is. Shinji replies that it doesn't matter who he is and suggests that what matters is waking her up. Dr. Lee asks him if he has a solution, so Shinji suggests a specific measurement of ginger, aconite, cinnamon bark, and cotinopsis. Everyone is shocked because that's the same prescription the doctor just gave, and they wonder how he knows about Eastern medicine and if he eavesdropped. Lee tells him that his prescription is the same thing he gave, but Shinji points out that one thing is still missing, which is Stardew Flower. Dr. Lee agrees that this prescription would actually wake her up, but there's nowhere to find Stardew Flower anywhere in the world. Meanwhile, the others are shocked that Shinji's suggestion actually makes sense. Nearby, Mr. Matsumoto asks the doctor how much this Stardew Flower could cost, and he says he can prepare any amount of money. The doctor tells him there's nowhere to buy it. Apparently, a Stardew Flower is shaped like a star, which is how it got its name. The extract from the flower holds great healing power, but Lee says he's only seen it recorded in ancient texts, and it only existed when spiritual energy was abundant on Earth. Matsumoto becomes afraid that this means his daughter will remain like this forever, but Shinji promises him that he will save Mika without leaving a single scar. Dr. Lee asks him if he actually has this Stardew Flower, and Shinji smugly replies that he does. The other doctor standing nearby claims that Shinji must be lying and must have clearly been eavesdropping on the prescription. but Lee tells him that doesn't explain how the kid got knowledge of the Stardew flower. The other doctor is certain he must have seen it online or something, but they don't realize that Shinji had exchanged his points for some Stardew flower. He tells the other doctor to quit his yapping and shows him the flower. Lee and the others are shocked at the sight of the flower, and he wonders how this kid can possess a legendary medicine like this. Eventually, Shinji asks if he now believes he can cure the girl, so Lee quickly apologizes for his rash judgment and pleads with him to heal her with it. When Shinji approaches Mika, he promises himself that he'll never let anyone hurt Mika in this life. He places the flower on her, and it releases its essence into her, causing her temperature to immediately begin rising. Suddenly, Mika opens her eyes and wonders who Shinji is, but he tells her just to rest well because they'll meet soon. Shinji soon goes to tell Mr. Matsumoto that Mika has recovered, and he advises that he keep taking care of her. Matsumoto thanks him deeply, and Lee asks Shinji to join him for some tea later, but Shinji proposes they make it another time because he's in a hurry. Regardless, Lee asks for his name, so Shinji tells him it's Fuji Shinji. Later that evening, Shinji goes through his computer looking for a website that explains how cultivation works that he remembers from his past life. When he finds it, he sees the different levels of cultivation and he remembers that he had only reached level 3 in his past life. Shortly after, he focuses on cultivation using the Brahma Inferno art, whose power is on a whole different level. He promises himself to dedicate himself to training so he'll reach the Supreme Emperor level, which is the highest one. Meanwhile, a man named Chairman Yan asks Dr. Lee if it's true that he encountered a boy with Stardew flower who already had spiritual energy. Lee admits this is true and explains that this boy must be a prodigy in spiritual cultivation, and he believes he might change the world if he grows stronger. Chairman Yan immediately sends some other chick to go measure Shinji's strength, and he tells Lee that this is an amazing discovery if it's true. Meanwhile, Shinji awakens great power using the Violet Secret Art, and he reaches level 2 in his first training session. He soon notices he's dirty and wonders why since he only skipped bathing for a day, and he soon goes to get something to eat. He heads out to find the nearest convenience store. While he's walking, the chick from before watches him from above a streetlight and hopes this guy won't disappoint her. To test him, she throws a disc covered with purple energy, and it falls behind him and explodes. Out of the explosion, a monstrous wolf emerges, and Shinji is excited to see that the mutation has already begun. The wolf growls at Shinji, so he covers his face because of how much it stinks and jumps back when the monster lunges at him. When he dodges, the monster attacks him with its tail and manages to hit Shinji in the leg. Shinji jumps backward to create a gap, and he generates flames from his hand to roast the monster, so he smashes the monster into the ground, using a move called Flame Emperor Fist. The impact causes blood to spew out of the monster's mouth, and the lady watching from above is shocked at what she just saw. After taking down the monster, Shinji calls it pathetic for dying after one hit. When he realizes he's even hungrier, he turns around to quickly grab a bite. Meanwhile, the lady from before is shocked that this guy just destroyed a mutant beast with a punch, and she wonders who on earth he is. She also wonders how he was able to awaken the fire attribute, which has the strongest attack power, so she jumps down to check on the mutant beast. When she comes closer, she notices its tail has broken and wonders how. She recalls a loud sound when it smashed its tail on Shinji's body, so she wonders how hard the boy's body is. The next day, Shinji feels intense pain after waking up, and he realizes he still has a long way to go in his training. When he goes into the living room, he hears the news that an unprecedented high temperature of 8 degrees was recorded at the summit of Mount Shiranui, and a descent order has been issued for all climbers on the mountain. Shinji recalls from his past life that the high temperature at the mountain's summit must have been caused by the awakening of the fire attribute spiritual energy, so he considers this a chance to absorb immense fire attribute spiritual energy. He rushes out but finds Rin at the door, who comes to ask him for the 200k yen for the bag. Annoyed, Shinji tells her to go get herself checked and reminds her to stay away from him. Rin claims he's doing this on purpose to get his attention, and she tells him she won't bother him anymore if he doesn't give her the money. But Shinji storms out and tells her to get lost. At the mountain, people gather behind police yellow no-cross lines, and some of the police struggle to keep people away from the lines so they don't get burned. The airheads, amidst the people, insist that they're lying and the mountain isn't that hot, and when one of them throws a corn past the line, it turns into popcorn immediately. They're shocked that the police weren't lying, so they start to rush back. Meanwhile, Shinji watches the whole thing and is glad the fire attribute is overflowing here, and he hopes to be able to reach a higher level by absorbing this energy. Despite the police's protest, he jumps past the line, but the officers who notice him tell him to immediately get back so he doesn't die. Shinji wonders if the fire attribute is really that strong, and when his body starts to absorb it, he feels like every cell in his body is on fire. The energy fills up his body and he promises himself to become strong in this life. Meanwhile, the others wonder what's going on with Shinji and why fire is shooting out of his eyes. When Shinji notices he's attracted too much attention, he decides to leave, so he jumps away while the people gossip that he must be a god or an immortal. Suddenly the temperature drops, and the police wonder how that happened while the people try to get the entire thing on camera. The officer in charge is shocked and wonders if the kid he saw was really a god. That night the news announces that a mysterious boy appeared near the summit of the mountain, and that the extreme weather phenomenon was resolved by him. Meanwhile, Chairman Yan makes a call to stop the Mount Shiranui news immediately so it doesn't create mass panic. After that, he asks the girl from before if she really witnessed Shinji defeat the mutant monster with a single punch, and she admits that he did, and that the monster didn't seem to hurt him at all. The chairman decides that these two occurrences must be the handiwork of two different geniuses, so he suggests recruiting Shinji into their organization before other factions make a move. He immediately orders the girl to go meet the boy. Meanwhile, Shinji continues his cultivation, and he's glad that he's finally reached level 2. Because he's reached the level called the Boundary of Bubbling Spring, he gets an additional attribute slot as a bonus. Apart from that, he also unlocks a function called Magic Infusion. This allows him to permanently infuse one of his internal attributes into a weapon, but the durability of the weapon depends on the weapon's material. Shinji is excited that he can create custom weapons, so he tries it out on a kitchen knife. Suddenly, he hears a knock on the door and goes to check who's there. At the door, he finds the chairman and the other lady. Chairman Yan apologizes for his sudden visit and introduces himself as Yan Jingtora, the president of the Spiritual Energy Training Association. He introduces the lady as Yue, his subordinate, and says they came to talk to him about spiritual chi cultivation. Shinji finds this amazing, and he remembers how one of them saved him and Mika in his past life. Even though they saved him in his past life, he doesn't want to have any connection to them in this life, so he asks them how they found out about him. Chairman Yan mentions how he treated Mika Matsumoto and mentions that Dr. Lee, who is a member of their organization, told them about him. This intrigues Shinji, and he realizes they don't seem to have any bad intentions. He lets them in, and they have a chat, so they find out he's not interested in joining them. Shinji replies that he doesn't like the idea of working in an organization, and he says he'll think about it after his spiritual chi revives once he's trained on his own. Suddenly, Yue tells him that she knows he's reached the boundary of spirit awakening at level 1, but she mentions that he only got there by sheer luck. She offers their guidance to help him reach the boundary of bubbling spring. She also adds that soon the earth will undergo a major transformation, and cultivating spiritual chi will be the only way to survive. Because of that, she offers that he joins them for guidance. She tells him about how she also thought she could awaken naturally on her own and refused the association's offer, but she explains that she couldn't after 3 years, yet she was able to in less than a year of joining. In 3 years, she was able to reach the boundary of bubbling spring. That shocks Shinji, so he asks her how old she is now if it took her 3 years, and she tells him she's 21 and asks why he's asking. He realizes that's quite slow, but he decides to keep it in his mind, so he tells her she's a genius instead. However, Yue mentions that everyone in the association is a genius because only geniuses can enter the association. Chairman Yan reminds Shinji that he'll receive a lot of support if he joins them, but he soon asks to be excused when he receives a call. When Yan picks up the call, he's told that a level 2 mutant beast has appeared just 30 kilometers from where he is. This shocks him, so he asks what the monster's attribute is, and he's told that it's most likely poison since it's a giant venomous snake. Chairman Yan orders that they lock down the area and says he and Yue will go there immediately. Liu apologizes to Shinji because they have to deal with an emergency and proposes they talk some other time. When they head out, Shinji remembers how he promised himself that he wouldn't be weak in this life or suffer humiliation. His ability is at the beginner stage of the boundary of bubbling spring, but he knows it won't be easy to go past this point. He wonders if there's any fire-attributed spiritual chi around, but he suddenly gets a call that shocks him. It's from a friend who asks him to help because his house is haunted. Shinji asks what he means, so the guy tells him that thunder has been rumbling all day in the mountain behind his house, even though there's no rain. Shinji wonders if the rare lightning-attributed spiritual chi has resurfaced, so he asks his friend Kotuj to tell him everything he knows. Kotuj tells him the sky is pitch black, but the thunder won't stop, so Shinji confirms that it's the lightning spiritual chi. Apparently there are 3 levels of spiritual chi. One is the common attributes, which include water, fire, wind, and earth. The second is the rare attributes, which include ice, light, darkness, and lightning. The third is the legendary attribute that includes the void, among others. Since Shinji just got a new attribute slot, he considers this his chance to get the lightning attribute. He quickly heads there and asks his friend to guide him to the mountain, and he asks him to ensure no one goes near it. Meanwhile, a lady named Kari asks 2 guys to come with her on their first mission, so one of the guys asks her where they're going. She informs them that a powerful lightning attribute, spiritual chi, seems to have shown up on a certain mountain, and they have to recover all of it before it spreads. Shortly after, Shinji reaches the foot of the mountain, and he's excited to find the lightning-attributed spiritual energy. He chooses the lightning attribute in his system, but he's told that it will take twice the usual amount to absorb the lightning energy. But he clicks yes to proceed. After that, the system gives him the blue lightning wind/slash technique. Shinji is amazed by the immense power it contains, and he's glad the energy is finally his. Meanwhile, Kaori and her men watch the lightning from another place, and the guys ask her if they can really collect something like this, and if it'll fit into such a small container. She tells them to quit yapping and collects the container, which she uses to suck in the lightning spiritual energy. The guys are excited to witness how amazing she is, but Kaori becomes worried when she notices a crack in the container, and she wonders why the spirit collector can't handle this. A sudden explosion occurs, and the container explodes, so one of the guys quickly jumps on her to save her. Kaori orders that they retreat because the spiritual energy is going out of control, but they suddenly notice a sound behind them. When they turn around, they notice Shinji, and Kaori wonders what a civilian is doing here. She immediately tells him to get out of here because it's no place for ordinary people, but Shinji is excited to see the lightning spiritual energy. He disregards their caution that he's going to get killed, and he runs into the lightning energy to absorb it. When his body collides with it, he starts to absorb the lightning, so the others believe that he must not be human. Cory can't believe her eyes because it's clear this guy's awakening an ultra-rare lightning-attributed spiritual energy. When the lightning power almost overwhelms Shinji, he refuses to let it defeat him. He tells the lightning that even the heavens and earth can't bring him down, because he'll make his name shake the world and even the gods. He tells the lightning to come at him, so he absorbs the whole thing until he starts to float in the air. Once he's done, he realizes it feels great, and his system tells him he's acquired fire and lightning-attributed spiritual energy. The system asks him if he'd like to fuse them into the legendary Thunder Flame attribute, so he excitedly starts the fusion. Once the fusion is complete, Shinji is shocked by the overwhelming power of the legendary attribute. Meanwhile, one of the agents of the organization informs Yue that only the white giant serpent has been detected close by. She realizes this monster could have the poison attribute, so she gives the men a jade talisman to crush if they're in danger to create a light attribute barrier to protect them. She warns them not to be reckless and to prioritize their safety. They step into the building to search, and two red eyes watch them from the ceiling. When Yue notices the snake going for one of the men, she rushes to push him out of the way. The men throw daggers at the snake and Yue freezes it. While the men rejoice, Yue realizes something is wrong and tells them to run, and the snake soon breaks free of the ice. It releases a green gas from its mouth that knocks down the men, and Yue radios headquarters to tell them about the giant snake. But she collapses before she can finish her statement. Sometime later, Chairman Yan goes to speak with Shinji about his new attribute. The chairman also tells him he's the only one that he can rely on to help them deal with the snake. When Shinji sees the picture of the snake, he realizes that one of his old friends named Hinasaku would have wanted to get this unique attribute. Since they don't know what's going on with Yue, the chairman tells Shinji he's their only hope since he's awakened the fire attribute. Shinji wonders how he knows he's awakened the fire attribute, so the chairman stutters that he heard from Yue how he defeated the mutated beast dog when he asked her to watch over him before. Shinji realizes they were the ones who released the dog on him, so the chairman apologizes that it was necessary to maintain public safety. Eventually, Shinji agrees to go to the factory to defeat the giant snake. Excited, the chairman offers to give him any support or personnel he needs. In the factory, Yue wakes up and sees one of her paralyzed men calling the snake a bastard. In front of the men, the snake seems frozen, so Yue wonders if it's trying to evolve by absorbing something. She knows that they need to do something to purify the area soon, or this will turn into a massive disaster. When she manages to get up, the snake notices her and jumps toward her, but Yue isn't going down without a fight. She attacks the snake with some ice crystals, but to her surprise, the snake knocks her down. As she falls back injured, she finds it impossible to believe that the snake had already evolved before they got here. She realizes they won't be able to stop this snake if things continue like this. When the snake closes in on her, Shinji enters and considers it a crazy coincidence because he used to work in this factory after high school. When Yue notices him, he tells her that Chairman Yan told him to help them. Yue tells him to run away because the opponent is too strong for him since it's already at level 3. But Shinji doesn't listen and tells her that those who need rescue among them should wait for reinforcement. He checks out the snake, which goes for his head immediately. Afraid, Yue tells him to run away immediately. But Shinji is suddenly covered with lightning and fire, and he smugly promises to crush the snake with one strike. As the snake comes closer, he punches it with his Thunder Flame attribute, knocking the poor creature several feet backward. Yue watches, as if she's just seen a miracle, and the snake quickly tries to escape through the wall it broke through when it realizes it's in big trouble. Yue tells Shinji not to let the snake escape, but Shinji brings out his sword to finish it off. His sword is imbued with the legendary Thunder Flame attribute, so he rushes toward the snake to dice it like sushi. It doesn't take long, and Yue is shocked to learn that he's awakened 2 attributes. Shinji recalls that the Spiritual Energy Training Association doesn't have any ill wishes and that they help people, so it shouldn't be a bad idea if they know about it. He admits that he's awakened fire and lightning, and Yue wonders how much stronger this boy will get. Sometime later, she reports this to the chairman, and he realizes that's why Shinji warned them not to monitor him. The chairman believes they must get him to join their association, so Yue asks if they should give up on monitoring him, and the chairman asks Yue if she doesn't think it's time to get a boyfriend. Sometime later, the Spiritual Energy Training Association has a meeting where some people believe they should announce that the spiritual energy has returned. One of them believes they can no longer keep it a secret because of the frequent occurrences. Some other guy believes he's talking trash because the world will fall into chaos if they announce stuff like that, and they'd regret it. However, the first guy believes that announcing is better, because at least it would have allowed them to warn the residents of the factory to evacuate before the incident. His opponent insists that they resolve the issue, but the first man insists that the first guy didn't resolve it, but some guy they called in. When the argument becomes more heated, Chairman Yan tells them to keep quiet. He asks them to take their seats and agrees with the first guy that he has a point because he might have lost his daughter, subordinates, and residents if not for the guy they called in. Because of that, he proposes they turn the locations they've confirmed that spiritual energy revival is happening in and use them as testing grounds. He suggests they build one as a tourist attraction and monitor how it affects the officials before determining their next course of action, and the men agree that it's a great idea. Since they don't object, he brings up the other issue he wants to discuss. He brings up Shinji's abilities and mentions that he wants to invite him to their Spiritual Energy Training Association. He says he'd like to appoint him as a leader of a squad and asks what they think. One of them agrees to letting Shinji join, but he doesn't like the idea of giving him such a high position immediately. The other guy agrees too, saying that this will cause dissatisfaction among the lower ranks. However, the chairman asks if they really saw his abilities because Shinji has awakened dual attributes of thunder and fire. He believes that putting him in a low rank can offend him, and they don't want to make someone like him an enemy. Because of that, the first guy suggests that the chairman prepare a test for him. The others agree that they will agree better if they can assess Shinji's abilities as a squad leader, and it brings good results. Intrigued, Chairman Yan tells them not to regret their suggestion later. The next morning, Shinji wakes up groggy as always, and when he hears a noise, he wonders if he's being burgled. He rushes outside to see the thief who's stealing from a poor fellow like him, so he opens the door and angrily tells the person to stop there. However, it turns out to be Yue, who's doing some cleaning, and she greets him good morning. Confused, he greets her too, but he suddenly wonders why she's in his house, especially after they promised not to spy on him yesterday. Calmly, Yue explains that she didn't come to spy on him but to live with him. Shinji is first shocked and then terrified. Later, he learns about the tests they want him to take. He remembers that it's just a few days until the 3-Chi Grand Gathering, and he tells himself he doesn't have time to waste on things like this. He tells Yue that he's not going to do it, so Yue tells him that this won't interfere with his training because a special location has been chosen for him. She points out that it's a place where spiritual energy revived recently, where they have new participants and there's a chance he'll meet strong comrades. Shinji remembers that a friend named Hakaru joined this organization, so he asks if Mika is joining the academy too. He learns that she is, so Shinji remembers that Mika once told him she was greatly blessed during the training in the Black Division, so he wonders if something happened during this test. He decides to go find out and tells Yue that he has some business with Mika. Sometime later, Chairman Yan addresses some members. He tells them to forget the peaceful life because a world of death is approaching. He tells them he'll introduce them to an advanced spiritual energy practitioner who will lead them all as their captain. Mika stands among them, and Kaori stands nearby too, wondering where the person she saw that night went. She remembers telling a superior about someone who awakened wrapped in divine light, but he doesn't believe her because no one is so strong. Next to her, another member named Ken asks her what she's thinking about, so she says she was just wondering what kind of person the captain is. Ken believes the captain must be some rich, privileged kid, so he decides that he'll rough the guy up so he'll understand who's the strongest around here, while the others praise him. However, Kaori warns him not to get carried away and cause trouble. Meanwhile, Yue shows Shinji the team he will be leading, and explains that it contains 5 members, 2 women and 3 men. Shinji reads the reports and notices the others have fairly common attributes, other than Mika's ice attribute. Yue also informs Shinji to pay special attention to Yoshi Ken, who used to be part of the underworld before he joined the association after awakening his wind attribute. Apparently, he has a fiery personality and hates taking orders. When they get closer, Chairman Yan announces to them that their captain has arrived, and Mika wonders if this is the person her father told her had saved her. Nearby, Kaori recognizes him as the guy who was wrapped in lightning energy on the mountain. When the chairman introduces Shinji, Ken stops him and asks the chairman if he's sure about this guy's ability. He complains that he could just drag them down if he turns out to be dead weight, and that will cause no one to listen to his orders. Excited, Shinji asks him if he'd like to test it out, and that pleases Ken. Shinji asks Ken if he thinks trash that's at the level of a bubbling spring can stand against him, and Ken asks him if he wants to die. He dashes towards Shinji with his wind energy to land a punch, but Shinji just asks him if this is all he's got. Before he can land his punch, Chairman Yan grabs his punch midair and asks him if he's planning to disobey the organization's orders. Ken quickly apologizes and says that was not his plan, but he expected the new captain to prove his strength so that he'll be able to command respect. The other guys agree with Ken since they're wrapped around his fingers, but Chairman Yan responds that they've confirmed Shinji's strength when he single-handedly took down a giant snake and saved Yue. It shocks Kaori when she learns that this guy was able to save Senior Yue, and Ken insists that he must have defeated the giant snake by luck. Eventually, the chairman states that anyone who disobeys his orders will be expelled and tells them to remain quiet. He proceeds to explain the details of their mission and says they'll have to defeat a creature known as the Thorn Monster. Based on their info, this creature takes up the form of a human and moves freely. He tells them to forget the idea that the world is still safe and to learn to keep death by their side. When they get into the forest, Shinji wonders if they're in the right place because he doesn't see any monsters, and he wonders if they're hiding underground. Eventually, Mika asks him if they're going ahead, or if they've missed the way. Shinji senses the spiritual energy getting stronger the closer they get to the giant tree nearby, but he doesn't sense the presence of any monsters. To be safe, he tells his teammates not to get close to the tree. He tells them to search the area to see if they can find any clues about the monster, and the ladies receive the orders. However, Ken asks Shinji if he's scared of the big tree, and the other guys laugh. Regardless, Shinji warns them again and tells them they'll take full responsibility for their actions if they ignore his instructions. Annoyed, Ken turns, and the guys check around the tree in defiance. Ken believes the tree is incredible because he's never seen something with such energy before. The other guys agree that they might be able to level up under the tree if they train there. Ken believes that he should be able to absorb the tree's energy and reach spring level 3 so that even Yue will be forced to acknowledge him. He pictures a time when all the ladies in the association cling to him like their daddy, and he excitedly decides to train to make his dreams come true. All three guys sit to cultivate, but Shinji leaves them there. As they walk away, Mika asks Shinji if he thinks the guys will be alright, so he says they should be fine, but he'll handle it if anything happens. While they're walking, Kaori asks Shinji if they met a few days ago, but he says he doesn't remember. When she brings up the mountain filled with lightning, he recognizes her and asks if she was just visiting the mountain that day. Shocked, Kaori explains they were dispatched to investigate the lightning's spiritual energy, and she accuses him of making her superior scold her for hours. She says she kept explaining that someone had absorbed the lightning element's spiritual energy, but they refused to believe her. Pushed to a corner, Shinji decides to apologize. Eventually, Shinji tells the ladies to remain on the spot because the spiritual energy there is plentiful. Mika asks him if he's not also going to train, and Shinji notices that Mika is just as kind as in his previous life. He replies that the spiritual energy here doesn't match his attribute, so they can train without him. As they're about to begin, they hear a cry for help, and it turns out the tree has started to whoops the boys' behinds. Apparently, it just started moving on its own. When one of the boys pleads that he doesn't want to die yet, Ken swoops in bravely to save him, and he attacks one of the tree's vines, but his blade doesn't do much damage. This shocks him, and he can't believe it, but he's soon knocked down by another vine from the tree. As he falls to his death, he remembers how the chairman told them that death will always remain by their side when they step into the world of energy cultivation. He collapses on the ground, wondering if it's game over for him, but a sudden bright light burns through the tree's vines. Shinji appears before him and tells him to run away. Ken gets up and insists that he can't abandon his comrades and leave, so Shinji acknowledges his guts. Ken insists that only the worst kind of men abandon their comrades. Eventually, Shinji infuses lightning flame energy into his knife, throws it at one of the vines, and cuts down one of the boys being held bound by the tree. That annoys the tree, so Shinji tells the boys to get out of there once he sets them all free. When an earthquake begins, they all fear that the monster is about to appear, and the tree transforms into a level 3 thorn monster. The boys almost shit their pants, but Shinji reminds them not to be afraid of death like the chairman told them. He covers his body in thunder flame and tells them to quit training if they are afraid of death. As the monster comes in for the kill, Shinji dodges its attack and keeps dodging even when the monster tries to land a hit. When he leaps into the air, the monster releases several vines after him, so Shinji creates a barrier of fire to burn the vines before they touch him. The fire overwhelms the monster's hand, so Shinji uses a move called Lightning Flame Fist to tear through the monster's chest in an instant. The boys almost drop their jaws, and Kari can't believe the power of a lightning attribute awakener. Mika thinks about heroes from novels and figures this is how they are. Meanwhile, the men from the organization watch the fight on their system, and they can't believe that Shinji possesses such strength. Chairman Yan eventually asks them if they have any objections to his decision, and they all say they don't. When they feel a sudden earthquake, Yue asks the chairman if it's what she thinks it is, and he agrees that they can no longer keep this hidden. He says the Earth's spiritual energy has completely recovered, and the world is about to be turned upside down. In the forest, Shinji analyzes the thorn monster, and he remembers that Mika said she had a connection to this place in his past life. However, it doesn't make sense since Mika has a water attribute, and the thorn monster has a wood attribute. They suddenly witness a bright light from the ground, and Shinji figures that the ice attribute must be emerging from there since the Earth's energy has fully recovered. He remembers that Mika wasn't strong enough to absorb this properly in his past life, but Shinji breaks the ground open to see it well. Mika finds it incredible that he was able to disperse all the surrounding energy with a single blow, so Shinji tells her to go there and try absorbing the ice attribute energy to become stronger. She agrees, so he hopes they can grow stronger together in this life and take revenge on the people who killed Seizu. Shinji tells everyone he wants Mika to train here with this powerful energy since she has the ice attribute, so he asks them to wait for them. When they get back home, they celebrate heartily because Mika has now advanced from Shuizuan level 1 to Qi level 3. Mika admits that it's thanks to the captain and everyone, and Ken apologizes to Shinji for misjudging him. However, Shinji tells him not to worry about it since he at least had the guts to never abandon his comrades. This touches Ken because the captain is saying such kind words to him after all he's done, so he and the other guys pledge their lives to Shinji, which he finds awkward. Suddenly, they hear a notice for everyone present there to evacuate, and some soldiers appear to evacuate them. Shinji notices some spiritual energy coming from one of the soldiers, so he figures he must be a practitioner. He recalls that Chairman Yan was supposed to be handling this matter, so he decides to observe for a bit since this could be a chance for the trainees to level up if the burst of energy detected was from his team. When the soldiers notice they're not moving, one approaches them and tells Shinji to get up, but Ken wants him to watch his mouth when he's talking to his captain. The soldier points a gun at Ken's throat and tells him to leave if he doesn't want to die, so Ken activates his wind energy to get into a fight. However, Shinji stops him. 3 hours ago, a group meets to discuss the spiritual energy suddenly recovering and what they're supposed to do. One of them says the most urgent matter is to capture the mutant dog that escaped, but their leader silences them while they're arguing. The leader says it's their top priority to capture the mutant dog so it doesn't harm people. The leader entrusts someone named Kawasaki with the mission of capturing the mutant dog. He also tells the rest of them to move to the border because they won't be able to maintain peace here. Finally, he tells Kawasaki to ensure he captures the mutant dog by tomorrow morning. Shortly after, Kawasaki leads men to hurry the evacuation to the east because they don't know when the mutant dog will appear. Looking through his camera, he sees one of his soldiers getting into an altercation with Ken. In the restaurant, Shinji tells Ken not to cause trouble with military personnel, and Ken calms down. As they leave, Shinji tells his teammates that there was an explosion of ominous energy this afternoon, and they'll be living in an extremely dangerous world from now on. He reminds Mika not to forget her training when they return, because she can become stronger even though her spiritual sword is still unstable. Suddenly, Kawasaki approaches Shinji, and Shinji recognizes him, referring to him as Keita. They both seem glad to see each other, so Shinji introduces him to the guys as his high school classmate. To make a joke, Kawasaki insists that he's actually Shinji's big brother figure, but Shinji insists he's the big brother. Kaori eventually suggests they leave since both men must have a lot to catch up on, and they leave. When they catch up, Shinji is amazed to find out that Kawasaki has climbed the ranks and has become a military officer. Other than that, Kawasaki tells him he has some important info, so Shinji asks him if he's heard about the global recovery of spiritual energy. Kawasaki lets him in on a secret and says their unit was mobilized here because of a mutant dog that escaped and is hiding in the area. Shinji finds that interesting and wonders if it's the same mutant dog that Yu sent after him. Soon after, one of the soldiers informs Kawasaki that they've evacuated all the civilians, so they just have to wait for the mutant dog to show itself. This intrigues Shinji, and he hopes to get to see the military's strength. He asks Kawasaki if he can watch, and Kawasaki agrees because he considers this a good chance for Shinji to learn how dangerous the world has become. He agrees and tells one of his men, Hayakawa, to guide Shinji to the observation area. As Hayakawa leads Shinji away, he reminds him to follow his orders regardless of his relationship with Captain Kawasaki. Shinji just chuckles and agrees without a fight. When he gets to the observation area, he notices everyone carrying guns. Based on their spiritual energy, he notices most of them are around Wakusen level 1, which means they're pretty skilled. Suddenly, an alarm is raised that the mutant dog has appeared. Somewhere nearby, the dog growls at some soldiers who surround it, and they open fire on the beast. The bullets don't do anything but annoy it, so the beast releases purple energy from its mouth. Shinji finds this strange, and Kawasaki realizes they're in trouble because the monster is trying to evolve. He orders his men to stop it immediately so their entire unit doesn't get wiped out. The men rush in to fight, but they're easily pushed back by the monster's energy. Moments later, the wolf evolves and grows spikes on its body. At this point, Kawasaki concludes it's game over for them. After fighting it for a while, Kawasaki doesn't win, and he tells his men that they have no choice but to fight to protect the civilians. He orders the special forces after him, and they rush toward the monster, but it easily knocks them back with its slash of energy. The other soldiers watch with shock as their captain is knocked into a pile of rubble, and Kawasaki sees the monster running toward him, so he wonders if this is where his life ends. As the monster's about to pummel Kawasaki into the ground, Shinji steps in and stops it with one of his hands. Kawasaki can't believe his eyes, but Shinji tells the monster he'll die for laying his hand on his friend. He electrocutes the monster, causing it to jump back in pain. This surprises Kawasaki, so he asks Shinji if he was a cultivator all along. Shinji assures him they'll talk about it after he destroys this monster, and the other soldiers are shocked that this guy was able to damage a rank 4 mutant beast with one single strike. He prepares his blade and approaches the monster to finish their dance. Shinji prepares a lightning bolt, and when the mutant dog sees it, it turns around to make a run for it, but Shinji isn't ready to let it escape. With one swift movement, he throws the lightning bolt through the dog's back and it comes out in the front. Meanwhile, Kawasaki is helped by some soldiers, and he's amazed by Shinji's powerful lightning cultivation. With the dog weakened, Shinji fuses his thunder flame power with his blade and slices the mutant dog in half. The other soldiers are shocked that Shinji has already grown this strong after the Earth's spiritual energy just got restored, and they wonder how much of a monster he'll become if he continues at this rate. However, Kawasaki gloats that this is expected of his incredible friend. Meanwhile, Shinji notices the knife he used has disintegrated even though it was military grade, so he realizes he has to find a weapon that's powerful enough to endure his power. When he comes back down, Kawasaki praises his awesome power, and he finds it amazing that Shinji never let his awesome power show all this time. Even though he's injured, Kawasaki tells the soldiers to clean up and goes somewhere to chat with Shinji. Sometime later, Kawasaki shows a video of the mission to a superior of his, whom he tells that Shinji is more than a friend, but a brother. The woman believes that the strength of the military will skyrocket if they can recruit him, so she asks Kawasaki if he's convinced him to join them. Kawasaki admits that he tried, but Shinji's already a member of the Spiritual Energy Cultivation Association. When his superior hears that, she decides to send someone to the organization to negotiate things. The next day, Shinji gets home, so Yue asks him if he joined the military operation. He admits that it just happened and he wasn't planning it, but he had to because his friend was in danger. Eventually, Yue informs him that the Supreme Commander's granddaughter has been calling their chairman nonstop to get him. When Shinji asks, Yue explains that the chairman is crying to cover it all up, but the lady is persistent, so Yue suggests that Shinji watches his back for a few days. Suddenly, Shinji receives a call from Kawasaki, which turns out to be from Fuwa Natsuki, Kawasaki's superior. For a moment, he doesn't reply, so Natsuki tells him that she knows a place where an exceptionally strong fire attribute spiritual energy is developing. This catches Shinji's attention because he's been struggling to increase his fire attribute spiritual energy. When he meets up with Natsuki, she tells him that a fireball was spotted during a night patrol at a construction site. The workers thought it was a spirit, so they called in a medium, but that only made things worse until the fire started burning the entire site. The military sealed off the area and attempted to handle it, but nothing has worked. Shinji asks Natsuki if the fire is still spreading, and she says it is, and all they can do is to evacuate people around to minimize casualties. Out of nowhere, she asks him if he's still involved with Yue, which shocks him. He asks her to stop saying weird things and explains that Yue is only around to keep an eye on him. Natsuki replies that he doesn't need to deny it so vehemently and continues her story. She explains that creating a military force of cultivators has become a national priority since the Earth's spiritual energy has recovered. The problem so far is that most cultivators with potential tend to be unruly and incapable of being team players, but Natsuki points out that Kawasaki had said Shinji is not like that. He asks her if she wants him to join the military to train the next generation of cultivators, and she agrees, then offers excellent treatment if he agrees. Regardless, Shinji explains that he has to focus on training new talent at the Spiritual Energy Cultivation Association first. This intrigues Natsuki because it shows that Shinji is really a person of principle. When they get to the location, they find the police trying to restrict the usually stubborn people from passing through the do not cross lines. When they step down from the car, Rin, who's standing nearby with Yuto, asks Shinji what he's doing here. Shinji doesn't answer, so Yuto jokes that Shinji is following Rin around like a watchdog. When the members of the press sense the tension, they quickly focus their cameras on them to capture spicy things they can report on the news. Yuto tells Shinji that he knows he can't forget about Rin, but he reminds him that he will never be with her because he wasted his chance. The members of the crowd also ignore why they came to focus on this drama, but Shinji can't even imagine that Rin and Yuto would be saying this crap out loud. Eventually, Natsuki comes to ask Shinji what's wrong, and the press turns to focus on her because of her stunning beauty. When Yuto sees Natsuki's beauty, his mouth starts to water because of how far out of Rin's league she is, but Rin looks shocked. Immediately, Yuto goes in to introduce himself with an extended handshake, but Natsuki simply asks Shinji if these people are his friends, leaving Yuto hanging. Eventually, Shinji tells Natsuki that they're just bystanders and proposes they enter because they don't have time for this. They leave Yuto hanging, and he becomes the laughingstock of the crowd because of how he was rejected. Meanwhile, this annoys Rin, and she refuses to let this embarrassment go, so she promises to make Natsuki regret this. When she sees Yuto still staring, she calls him to order, so he quickly apologizes, and she realizes she would have dumped him long ago if he weren't rich. Meanwhile, Natsuki tells Shinji that the site workers have confirmed that the fire has increased, and they'd have to increase the safety perimeter. She says they need to find a quick solution, and she leads him to the area where the fire attribute spiritual energy is highly concentrated. She soon brings out a device to measure spiritual energy levels, and from her readings, she gives orders to extend the perimeter by 10 kilometers. While she's still speaking, she's shocked to see Shinji walking right into the fire she showed him. The freaked-out soldier nearby asks the vice commander if he should stop him, but Natsuki wonders if Shinji is really trying to control the fire. Shinji approaches the fire energy, and his system informs him that it has detected strong fire attribute spiritual energy he can absorb. He chooses to absorb it, and the energy begins pouring into his body. The flow is so strong that it almost blinds Natsuki and the soldiers with her, and this makes Natsuki wonder how powerful this guy is. She wonders if he'll reach advanced level 4 or level 5 if he absorbs all this energy. Meanwhile, Shinji's fire attribute spiritual energy reaches level 2, and he gains 1 draw as a bonus for a new fire attribute technique. Shinji uses his bonus to draw a new technique, and when he selects the option, the system tells him he hit a jackpot, which shocks him. Apparently, he got the Eternal Sacred Flame technique, a golden fire attribute technique. Since it's his first time getting a golden technique, he also gets 10 bonus points. With this technique, through training, he can store fire attribute energy within his body, allowing him to perform large-scale attacks from within. Excited, he decides to absorb every last bit of the fire energy, and he soon does that. This shocks Natsuki because she can't believe he absorbed all that fire energy by himself. When he's done, Natsuki is shocked to check if he's alright, but he tells her he's chill, and thanks her for bringing him here. When she checks her device, it sparks and explodes, but Shinji quickly pulls her away from the explosion. In his embrace, Natsuki assures herself that she will make this man her own no matter what it takes. Later that evening, Natsuki confirms from Shinji if he really absorbed all the fire attribute spiritual energy into his body, and he asks her if there's a problem. She says there's none, and asks him what his current level is, so he says it's probably level 4 in the Yosen realm, and he believes he'll reach level 5 soon. This surprises Natsuki because she thought his level would be higher with all that power, so Shinji explains that his cultivation method is a bit unique. When he's unable to explain it, Natsuki decides not to press further because cultivators like to have their secrets.